got here. So I just want you to factor in a few things before we start this, is that whatever you were dealing with before you came here is something to look at. You know, whatever levels of stress you were under, whatever lifestyle, diet you were doing before you got here played a part. And then getting on a plane is one of the most dehydrating, stressful things that we can do to our body, unfortunately, because we have to get on planes to get to places, right? To get to paradisical places like this. So unfortunately, we have to go through that. And me personally, I had to drink a ton of salt water before I got on the plane. I stored spring water in my bag, so right off, like 17 hours later, when I got off the plane, I had water available to me. One of my bottles broke, unfortunately, so I had to do laundry with all my clothes. And that's just kind of the things you go through sometimes. So you can definitely prep better for that. But that's just kind of what I went through, because I know when you're on a plane, it is stripping water from your body constantly, and your body has to actually compensate. And every time you snack on something, like me, I don't know what I was thinking. I just had a bunch of Mac nuts, and my body has to extract water in order to liquefy the Mac nuts into a form that it can actually metabolize, right? So that, in me, I'm already putting myself in a dehydration state. And I noticed that when I got off the plane, I'm like, oh man, like I'm not feeling totally with it. I feel kind of like, you know, I know what that feeling of dehydration is like. That little bit of mental energy is gone. I'm tired, a little bit of brain fog. I don't feel like balanced, right? We all know what that feeling is like. In most issues, disease-related issues, I guarantee every single form of disease is rooted in dehydration. At the root of it, there's a dehydration. Your cells are basically like little water bags. And there's layers of water molecules that make up your cells. And so essentially from that level, the cellular level, a dehydration occurs, and then the more those cells start to dehydrate, they get very dry, they get very brittle, and then they start to corrode. Does that make sense? And then it leads way to what's called anaerobic organisms. Anaerobic organisms means non-oxygen breathing organisms. Those are the roots of all disease. I probably riffed about it a little bit yesterday. It's one of the things that I always drive in, because behind every single condition that we can think of, there's some kind of infection, a viral infection, a bacterial infection, fungal, mold toxicity from the house that we're living in, the mold in the walls, the black mold, parasite infections. And I want to put that out there too, because when you have a detox symptom, when you have what's called a healing crisis, when your body is in a shock zone and some of you, I know I've talked to some of you, you're experiencing a little bit of that, where your body feels like it's shocked, like, whoa, like, oh God, I feel nauseous, I got like brain fog, like I need to throw up, right? That's kind of riding that shock zone a little bit. And what that signals is that your body has been holding on to toxic residue for quite some time. That's what that essentially is telling you. It's not like it just happened yesterday, or the raw food had bacteria in it. That's not what that means. It actually means that you've been holding on to residue in your body for a long time, and your body is actually acclimated to it. This is an important thing to understand as we traverse through this conversation, is that our body is very adaptable. This is why I have a pet peeve when people talk about like historical diets and like we were meant to eat this thing and that thing. It's like, no, our body, human beings have tried to eat every single thing under the sun. You know? We've tried to be insectivores. We tried to be carnivores. We tried to be vegetarians. We tried to be raw foodists, vegans, whatever. Breatharians, suntarians. Like, we've tried everything. And some things work for some people at certain phases and stages in their life, and some things don't. It's just a mystery of the nutrition riddle. But one thing I know is that human beings can adapt to their circumstances better than any other animal. That's the thing about being a human, is we're highly adaptable. It's also our downfall because it causes a cognitive insulation. What do I mean by that? Cognitive insulation. We're not aware of ourselves. We're not aware of the subtleties that are going on in our body. Remember yesterday I was talking about raw food, how it helps us become more sensitive, and ultimately that helps us become more sensible? Well, that's what I'm talking about. Detoxification essentially is the process of releasing everything that has nothing to do with who we are and getting back to who we really truly are at the core of our being. In any interpretation you want to make about that, it fits. But on the physical level, getting rid of all the gunk, cleaning out the system, changing the oil. I mean, how many of us know all about our car? Or how many of us know somebody that knows all about our car but doesn't know the first thing about their human vehicle? I mean, geez, if we were to put our magnifying glass on anything, it might be a good idea to figure out how this thing works, right? That makes sense. That's rational, right? That's why you guys are all here. That's why I'm here. It's why I got started with this whole thing, because I had a set of issues too. And they started coming up to the surface, and I had to get educated on this. I had to figure out what was going on. How do I deal with this? And so what we want to do essentially, very basically, is we want to increase aerobic respiration. Aerobic means oxygen respiration, oxygen breathing. That's going to be a theme of every single conversation that we have, because essentially the human body is running on oxygen metabolism. Ideally, in a state of peak health, your body is running on oxygen. Way before you run on glucose from carbohydrates, sugar, way before you run on fats or protein or any of that, your body respires and runs on oxygen first. And whenever you have an issue, like a metabolic issue, you have a dis-ease, a body and mind out of ease. Let's think about that. The word dis-ease is a body and mind out of ease. There's an oxygen depletion in the system, right? And that's what I'm talking about with these little strategical little infectious organisms. They're very smart. They're very crafty. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next coming presentation in a few days. But we got to understand that they create havens in the body to use us essentially as a remote control. It's kind of what's going on. When you think of like a bacterial infection, you think about a parasite. What's a parasite do? I mean, we think of like, oh, our dog has a parasite. Or like a tiger that eats nothing but like meat and blood. Oh, they have parasites for sure, but like, no, what? We don't. Maybe my partner does. Maybe him over there. Or her over there. They yeah, it's that. But we never think about us, and why is that? If you think about the nature of a parasite, and this goes for Candida especially, that's why I coined the term Candida consciousness. Candida consciousness. It's basically where you're convinced that you don't have something. Like food cravings, sugar cravings, late night cravings. Whoever here who's done really good on their diet through the whole day, and then the moonlight kicks in, and then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, like, oh man, that looks, ooh, those cookies. Looks really good. Corn chips, organic corn chips. Don't think that has nothing to do with it. Like the cravings, right? The voracious cravings, like sometimes uncontrollable. And you remember yesterday I was referencing this idea of unconscious food habits or cravings? Remember that? This is the deeper aspect of it. It's not you that has a craving. It's what lives inside of you that has a craving.